Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to hear about the Tonys?
That's it. That's my intro.
Hey, I'm Amanda, watching Swell Entertainment, and today we were talking about the Tony Awards. I'm just not realizing that my head is going to be covering the logo the entire time, but I think it's fine because you get the vibes. This was the vibes they were going for. There's a lot we were going to talk about, how I shenaniganed my way into it, and then everything that happened at the Tony Awards. So first, let's talk about this because there was quite a few people who were like, oh my God, Swell got invited to the Tony Awards. No, they don't. Why would they know who I am? Why would I be invited? The thing is that I have the audacity to ask if I can come to the Tony Awards. I'm getting better at that. I used to be horrible at asking if I could go to things. And then I realized, again, that's really just kind of the first step to opening quite a few doors is asking. You can try barreling into the door, but then you get a reputation for that. So being polite about it or having someone else ask for you, that's really good. So before we talk about the Tony Awards, we have to talk about the writer's strike because that obviously had a massive impact on the Tonys this year. And there's still quite a few people who think that the Tony Awards going on at all was in fact crossing the picket line, when really it wasn't. So you're all aware I am pursuing acting and writing here in Los Angeles, but I am not currently in the WGA or in SAG-AFTRA. But just because I am not in these unions does not mean I do not support these writers that are striking in pursuit of a fair deal. If there had been the possibility of this being picketed, I would not have crossed the picket line to go into the Tony Awards. The Tony Awards were not picketed, so I ended up attending the Tony Awards, okay? Okay, I want to make that abundantly clear. The reason the Tony Awards were able to take place during the writer's strike is because they reached a compromise. In that compromise, I believe there was several things stipulated, but the main thing is that the entire show had to be unscripted. There was no teleprompters, there was no opening number that was written. And then they also asked that anyone that was in the guild to not go to the Tony Awards. For Broadway and a lot of these shows, they need the Tony Awards for advertising. This is a massive marketing event more than just an award show. Yes, people want to be nominated and to win, obviously, because there's an accomplishment. But the Tony Awards, for most of these shows, the value is in the marketing that comes with being a Tony-nominated play, a Tony Award-winning musical. Not only is this important for when these shows are on Broadway in New York, but if they start doing national tours, then that helps sell tickets as well, because then, hey, they're in your city now, so you can go and see this Broadway show in your city. It obviously helps with the longevity of these shows and their finances. So what I originally heard, and then ended up getting walked back, I believe as part of the compromise, was that the Tonys were not going to be televised this year. They were not going to be broadcasted. Because of the compromise, that was changed, so they did in fact end up airing on CBS and Peacock, or no, Paramount Plus. I was there. I don't know. When I originally heard that the show was not going to be televised is when I asked my management to reach out to the Tony Awards. I asked my management to show them the other award shows that I have covered up until this point. The other award shows I have covered have been the Watties, the Wattpad Awards, the Streamies, which is the YouTube Oscars, sort of, the Streamer Awards, and AVN Awards. The Porn Awards. I went to those. They'd also asked what other videos that I had done about Broadway. My management ended up submitting my horror on Broadway video talking about Grey House. So my management was dealing with that and I heard nothing. So as far as my beliefs go, spiritually, I'm open to some stuff. I'm not a religious person, but I'm spiritually open, spiritually curious. Happy Pride Month. As far as manifestation goes, I dabble, all right? You could argue that the entirety of my channel exists because of manifestation, because I operated as if I was a full-time content creator for 2 months, and then suddenly I had a video go viral, and now this is my job. Hi, welcome. I did this previously with the Streamy Awards back in December, all right, where I just acted as if I was already going. At the time, I'd asked my management then to reach out to them as well, and they'd been told, hey, there's no more spots. I was like, I will stand against a wall. I will do anything. So at that point, I had been told I was not going to the Streamies, but I still behaved as if I was going to the Streamies. This time I heard nothing, and I was just behaving as if I was going to the Tonys. So made sure my hair was good, got my nails done, got a lash lift for the first time. That was fun. I like them. You can't see them from here, but I like them very much. And then Thursday before the Tony Awards, my management reached out to me and said, hey, they've got a last minute cancellation. There's 2 tickets available at $7.50 a piece for the Loge. And I said, ask if I can please have 1. If I need to get 2, I will figure something out. And I started asking other people, but no one said that they could go with me. It's easy for me because I am a let's just go there type of person. And also, I make different money than a lot of my friends. My dad said no. Lame. Okay, whatever. But, luckily they let me only buy 1 ticket. So they sent me the invoice and I got my ticket confirmation the next day. booked my flight the same day I bought the ticket, and I went and gone. Boom, manifested. So I did, in fact, buy my ticket to the Tonys. So the invoice was for $775. I went to New York Saturday. While I was heading out there, Brendan from Wait in the Wings here on YouTube saw that I was going to New York and was like, hey, are we gonna hang out? And I was like, yeah, I'm coming for the Tony Awards, but I can hang out on Saturday. And he was like, you're going to the Tony Awards? Again, Wait in the Wings? He's a Broadway content creator. And so I was like, yeah, why don't you go to the Tony Awards? So I told him what the email was, and he himself, without management, I want to make that very clear because I know someone's gonna be like, not all of us have management, Amanda. He reached out on his own. To be fair, he is a Broadway content creator, so it made more sense for him to go than it made sense for me to go. And they immediately got back to him and was like, hey, were you in the mezzanine? I was like, no, my seat's in loge. And then the ticket that they had available for him was about $1,200. Now, something to keep in mind for these last minute cancellations is that there were the fires in Canada. New York was basically hotboxed. It was detrimental to people's health. They looked like California in August for a little bit. And so a lot of people canceled their tickets, I believe, because of that. And then once I got there, it was fine. Okay. It didn't even smell like a campfire or anything. It was fine while I was there. But we assumed that that was part of the reason that any of us were able to get tickets, was that there were so many last minute cancellations. When I landed in New York, we went and got cappuccinos, and I bullied him into going to the Tonys. Now, let me explain the phrase bullying, because some of you are going to jump to conclusions. I simply sat there and I demonstrated all the reasons it made sense from a business perspective, as a Broadway content creator, for him to go to the Tonys and spend this money if he was able to get a loge ticket, because they had come back to him and said, hey, we have a loge ticket. And he just decided not to. It was the same price as mine. He was like, it's a lot of money. I said, I agree, but here's why it makes sense. And I basically laid it all out for him. I gave him like a good 5 or 6 reasons of why he absolutely should buy this ticket and go to the Tony Awards this year, including the fact that it was in a completely new location. It was at the United Palace Theater in Washington Heights. It was unscripted. That's a big deal. You know, like there was a lot of reasons that I explained, like, you gotta go this year. It's not like I was being like, you should go to the Tonys because it's gonna be so cool that you went to the Tonys. So he said, fine, if they reply as I'm sitting here to this email, then I will do it. And sure enough, he's like, God damn it, they applied. Within 3 minutes, as I'm still explaining, like, listen, you gotta go. This is a good decision to do. And so luckily he went. And then I was worried because I was worried his girlfriend, Juliana, was gonna be mad at me for getting him to spend money like that. And then sure enough, they texted me at like 10 o'clock at night that they bought Juliana a ticket as well. Another couple friends added to the list. I recently came to the realization that as the token single, I have just started collecting couple friends. Let's talk about the dress. I already had this dress. I did not buy this dress. I did not rent this dress. This was a gift from Lisa. For those who don't know, Lisa is my dad's longtime girlfriend of 12 years who passed away in December after a lengthy battle with cancer. She would often just like buy me little things that she thought I would like. I still don't know the answer to how she found this dress, but my understanding is that she bought this dress for me because she had seen me buy a similar shorter dress that was like a flapper style dress that was full of beading, and she knew that I liked beaded dresses. So she bought me this dress, and we found it with a tag for it for me after she had passed away when I started going through her clothes for donation. So that is how I found this dress, and I'm not gonna cry, but it was just really special to be able to wear this dress to such a cool event like this, and I'm always gonna have that memory for myself. And I got a lot of compliments on the dress. A lot of people stopped me and were like, oh my God, I love the beading, it's so pretty. It was I'm not gonna cry. We're not crying today. I have therapy on Thursday, okay? Okay, then I left my hotel literally like right at 4:30, all right? Because we were allowed to get into the ceremony doors at 4:30. So I didn't want to be the first one there, but I also didn't want to be late. I wanted time to film and walk around. So I was like, cool, I'll leave the hotel at 4:30. So there was multiple checkpoints to make sure I had a ticket before I was actually scanned in, which I do think is kind of smart just to check, because I don't know, are people sneaking into the Tonys? Yes, people are sneaking into the Tonys. Of course they are. But like, you get my point. They just would check to make sure that I had it. They didn't check to see if it was a screenshot or anything. And someone did later ask if it was a screenshot. And I was like, no. Entire time as well, I knew I had bought a loge ticket, but there was no seat assignment on my ticket. And so we weren't sure if maybe that was a really good sign and it meant that I was going to be used as like a seat filler for orchestra or something. I'm just saying, we can hope. What ended up happening is once I was scanned in, I was like, oh, and I don't have a seat assignment. And she was like, okay, you can go right over here. Yeah, you're in here, but there's no seat assignment. Even on their system, it didn't have a seat assignment for my name. Listen, wherever you want to put me, I'm cool with whatever. If you need me to stand against a wall, I will still do that, okay? I try to be low maintenance once I'm at the event. I look high maintenance, but then I go and behave low maintenancely. One of the employees at the management company's name had been on the thing, but the ticket itself would have been my name. So they searched her name and my seat assignment was given to her. She was like, oh, is she coming? I was like, no, she negotiated on my behalf. I paid for it. I can show you the invoice. Everything else has my name. So they gave me that seat number. And so I was in Loge left A29. Yes. So once you get through that, there was a poster that had the Tonys around and everyone was taking photos. And a very nice old couple said, can we take your picture in front of it? You look beautiful. Thank you. And they asked if I could take one for them. That kept happening. Like, hey, you look amazing. Can I take your photo? And then can you take one of me? That seemed to be the going line for like most of the event, which I do think is interesting. There's so many times where it's like, hey, can you take our photo? And then the other person's like, oh, cool. And would you mind taking one for me as well? The other way around this time, it's like, I'll take your photo if you take one of me. I just think that's little details like that I always think is interesting at different events. And then I walked around a little bit more and they were setting up for the after party. All right. Now, I knew going in that I did not have access to the after party. They did ask me a couple of times if I had after party. And I was like, I don't know. I knew I did not. Orchestra automatically got into the after party. Every other ticket had to pay for the after party. That option was never given to me to pay for the after party. So I have never actually gotten the answer of how much that would have been. But I filmed a little bit of where the after party setup was, where it was outside of the Tony Awards. And then they had me go through what looked like metal detectors, but I don't think they were. And that is where I found Brendan and Joanna, and they both looked amazing.
Look who I found. Tell them how you bullied me.
I bullied him because I said it was a good business move to come here, and I stand by my decision.
Only good thing I've gotten out of this is a velvet bow tie.
I took a couple of clips outside here. So some of the security guards said, hey, we're trying to get everyone inside. We're going to start closing the doors. And like, we had another hour until they closed the doors, but they were trying to kind of control the flow of traffic. So where we were was on the other side of the red carpet. So past the little barrier was the red carpet on the other side. So we could see it. We could not go that way, basically. All right. But once you made it inside, intermingling. If you want to just go and experience and meet people in theater, basically, you could have done this way and you would have met quite a few people. And going with Brandon and Juliana was great because Brandon knew literally everyone. And I'm not just talking like the people who were in these productions. He knew the writers and the marketing staff and the directors and everything, which is great. He would go up and say hi to people. People were saying hi to him. It was great. I was like, again, I'm right. I love being right. You should be here. I'm correct. So I went to go find my seat. They were also in Loge, but in a different section of Loge. So I was sitting alone. Usually the Tonys are at Radio City Music Hall. This year, they were at the United Palace Theater in Washington Heights. Beautiful theater. Oh my God. I just kept taking clips of the walls and the ceiling because I believe everything is like carved into the wood. So it's such a stunning, intricate theater. Like just the details of the theater itself are stunning. So the way that the theater is laid out is you have the orchestra that is the entire ground floor, mostly what you see on TV. The balcony that you see, that entire second floor basically, starts at the front is the mezzanine. And then Loge is the second portion. And the balcony, the actual balcony seats are at the very, very top in the very, very back of that section. I was in Loge. I was in the middle section. I don't know what the balcony seats were, how much they were, but they must have been cheaper than the $765 that I paid. I ended up being right at the front row of the Loge. So I knew quite away. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be on camera, which is fine. No problem. But what I loved about being here was the people watching. 29A was right at the end. The entrance into the Loge where the ushers were hanging out to help get people to their seats and everything. The amount of people that I saw who argued with ushers was actually surprising to me. The people who were like, no, we had better seats than this because they thought that by getting Loge, they were sitting in the mezzanine. And so obviously the mezzanine, if you're right at the front of the mezzanine, you have a high likelihood of maybe getting on camera. Or they thought they were sitting where I was sitting in Loge, which would have been at least slightly better seats. You could pretty much see everything from everywhere. Even from where I was, I could not see down into orchestra all that much. You might see a few clips where it's clear that I'm like leaning my arm forward, trying to look down to get some clips of, say, when Ariana DeBose was in the crowd.
Best featured actress in a play is up next. And also, I don't know what these notes stand for. So please welcome whoever walks out on stage next.
I was on the end of this 3-seat segment. There were 2 seats next to me. Someone had bought the tickets that were sitting next to me. They were empty for a good chunk of the show. At some point, 2 guys came up and they were like, is anyone sitting here? And I said, no, I don't think so. And so they just came and sat there. But I know those weren't their seats. So now I'm kind of under the impression that 3 things are probably possible. 1, there was a lot of last minute cancellations because there were quite a few empty seats around us. That being said, there were quite a few people who apparently never came back in. They came to their seats one time and then were just kind of hanging out at the bar the rest of the time because that's what happened with Brendan and Juliana. They heard that quite a bit. There's also the possibility that an organization bought a bunch of tickets and we're trying to sell them off separately. Always a possibility. I went directly through the Tony Awards production, but it could have been a different company that had bought a bunch of tickets or bulk bought and was just selling them individually and then couldn't. So those tickets technically remained empty, but also sold. Or what I think is probably more likely, because this makes the most sense to me, rich people are weird and they just buy tickets or they have their assistants buy tickets in case they maybe want to go somewhere. And so when they don't, they just don't use the tickets. Thus, you have two $700 seats at the Tony Awards that were vacant. I don't know, rich people are weird. So about 6:20, Ariana DeBose came out and said, hi, I am your host for tonight. Kind of broke things down a little bit. There's no teleprompter, there's no notes, there's no nothing.
Ariana also went to each of the 2 microphones that were on stage so that people who won their awards would know exactly where the camera would be so they knew where to look. Now, I don't know if there was a better way they could have demonstrated this to people or if a lot of people just missed this, but the amount of shots that I saw of the side of people's heads because they were looking in the wrong direction from the camera, I don't know what happened there.
She also told us that there was going to be a musical number at 8. And so when that happened, you would have to be in your seats to be clear of the aisles. Now, the 8 o'clock, I believe, is when the actual show and the broadcast started on CBS. So Ariana left the stage and then Julianne Hough and Skylar Astin came out to do the Act 1 that was streamed on Pluto. So there was quite a few technical awards given away at this time, as well as a bunch of the Carnegie Mellon Award and just a couple of other awards that are like Lifetime Achievement Awards, things like that, which were very sweet. And the guy who won the Carnegie Mellon, where's my playbills in the thing? But like, he made me cry. He gave this really beautiful speech, and the entire time he was also signing all of his words as well.
And they have taught me to look at potential rather than seeing face value. They've shown me that our exceptionalities make each and every one of us exceptional. And that with a little bit of creativity and ingenuity, that anyone is capable of anything.
And he was explaining that, when we look at people that have disabilities, people often focus on what they can't do instead of what they can do. It was just very sweet, made me cry. I hope that speech is somewhere because I just thought that was very sweet. There was no musical performances or anything like that. I want to make that very clear. They just kind of kept very clearly going like, hi, this is who I am, next award, nominees, all this stuff. Okay, kept it going. So they made it very clear, okay, this officially concludes Act 1. Stay in your seats. Everyone here, stay in your seats. Don't go anywhere. The show's about to begin, all this stuff. Do people not listen? Stay in your seats. I'm sad. The amount of people that got up and thought they had a bathroom break when they made it very clear that there was not a pause here. Ushers were being like, okay, if you go that way, you're going to be stuck. They're not going to let you back in. You're not going to be stuck. And I thought they were just going to be stuck in the lobby area. No, because if you saw the opening number, it starts with Ariana DeBose opening up a script for the Tonys and the pages are blank because there's no script. And then she goes into a musical and choreography number, which I thought was very cool. I don't know if it came across on the broadcast, but we were gasping when she threw herself down those stairs. They looked high from the stream. Having walked down those in a gown and heels, I can tell you that's a lot of steps. Those are some steep steps. That jump was pretty impressive jump. But that lobby is where we had been before the show. That's where the bar was. That was full of people, all right? So when they told people you're going to be stuck, they meant in the hallway. So they probably were sardined in there for that entire musical number, because then they go down the stairs and they go down into the walkway. Very fun, very cool. And then she does her little opening bit where she explains that there is no script or anything, talks about the Writers Guild, which I think was very good and very smart. And also, I want to give Ariana her flowers now. I don't think anyone else could have pulled this off the way that she did. The smart thing that they did here as well was having someone who had previously hosted the Tonys. Ariana hosted last year. And so she already knew the formatting, she knew the style, she knew the pace that she would need to be at. And I think that really helped things. But she was just light and fun and airy and kept it going. And she poked a little fun at herself where she said that, they did the thing, for her BAFTA song that she did earlier this year. There really wasn't any flubs, and I honestly was expecting something more crazy to happen. There really was nothing any crazy. One of the announcers just called Ron DeSantis the Grand Wizard. Everyone in there loved that. Thought it was hilarious. Anyone who's like, I can't believe they allowed that. It's the fucking Tony Awards. So whenever the broadcast stopped and we were on a commercial break, they would put a timer on the screen to explain how long it would be until the cameras were rolling back in. So usually people would get up and go to the bathroom, sprint, what have you. And sometimes they would come back, sometimes they wouldn't. I just sat and I would go on my phone for a little bit. As someone who really likes the technical side of theater and performances and things like that, I really liked being able to see after all the musical numbers, how the crew would deal with the sets and stuff like that. Something that I want to note as well, and I talked with Brandon and Juliana about this after the show as well, because it's my understanding that these individual shows have to pay in order to perform at the Tony Awards, which is again why this is a massive marketing opportunity. It's like paying during the Super Bowl. They pay to perform. I don't know the exact number, but I'm assuming it's not nothing. You would think that you would choose a song or maybe a mashup of songs that would really exemplify what your show is about. Some interesting choices here that I don't know how I feel about them. I'm sure Angelita is great. I just really am not a big fan of jukebox musicals personally. It's not for me. I'm not a fan. They performed Katy Perry's Roar. I don't know if that was a good choice for trying to sell your musical. I'm just saying, I think probably could have done something different. I mean, it was cool. Very, very great performance. I love the quick change. I always love a good quick change. The Into the Woods revival was funny because they had Milky White with the puppeteer on stage. I know that that's like a whole thing now, is the puppeteers being very visible and not trying to hide them whatsoever. But it took me the fuck out when they're singing about we can do this. We can make it through the woods. We're doing it. We can have a child together. Oh my God. Milky White's head just comes up and it's just bobbing, and there's a guy going it's But I just thought that was interesting that they chose that song. In my opinion, there's some very good ensemble numbers in that musical that I think they could have chosen from instead. Kimberly Akimbo. I don't know what I thought Kimberly Akimbo was about. It was not about a teenager with an aging disease in New Jersey. So the song they chose was Kimberly talking with a classmate that she has a crush on, basically. He is coming up with an anagram for her name. Then she starts singing about kind of how she likes him, basically. And I don't think if that was a good decision for that one either. If I knew nothing about the play, and that's the video that I saw was that performance from the Tonys, I don't know if that would sell me on it. Not that they were bad. These were great performances. But I'm just thinking from a marketing perspective, if I would have chosen those same numbers. In comparison, I actually like the Sweeney Todd number, but I think that most people understand and know Sweeney Todd. I do think Josh Groban thinks he's too attractive to be doing Sweeney Todd. He was trying to make faces like he was doing Sweeney Todd, but there was just a few moments where he made little head jerks where you're like, oh, you know your angles, you know what I'm saying? But what I did really like about Sweeney Todd, again, as a technical person, is when I had seen smoke above the Tony sign during that previous category announcement. And I was like, is there a fucking fire at the Tony Awards? And no, what it was is they were building up smoke for the Sweeney Todd number. So when they lifted the stage, the smoke rolled out very slowly and crept across the stage. Oh my God. I was trying to get it on camera. I don't think I got it in time, but it was very cool how they did it. I love it. Apparently there's something you can do with smoke that makes it heavier so that it rolls like that versus goes everywhere. That's pretty cool. That one kid from Stranger Things is also in that performance. And when I tell you that people just started screaming when they saw it, I don't know if they knew that he was in it or not. But it was very funny, a reaction. I was like, oh, that's him. I know his name. I'm just blanking. Then you saw Josh Groban as Sweeney Todd walk onto stage and then lay down in the smoke, in the fog, because in the actual show, apparently he's under the stage and then he comes out from a hole in the stage. But here they don't have that. So he's just laying down and then suddenly he stands up and rises from the fog. It was nice, but they probably could have done more. Shucked was fun. They did quite a bit. They were like, we've got 3 minutes and it's the Tony Awards. Let's go. I loved it. Kimberly Akimbo won Best Musical. J. Harrison Ghee won Lead Actor in a Musical. Alex Newell won Featured Actor. I really think the gender neutral categories worked very well here at the Tony Awards, and I hope that that means that more award shows will take note and add more gender neutral categories as well, because I just think that it worked really great. And I don't know, welcome to 2023, And anyone who's like, well, aren't people going to feel slighted that they didn't get the chance to, win in a gendered category? Or they're going to be upset that they feel they had more competition? I mean, are you good? Was your performance good? If anything, I think it would just lead to more categories and more opportunities to win than anything. Oh, one of the lines was bleeped. Casey Nicola won for choreography. He said he was called the F word a lot in school, but now he's an F word with a Tony. That's what was bleeped. People loved that. It's really cool as well to be in the crowd as well for things like this, because you just see like what shows people really like. A lot of cheering for Some Like It Hot and Leopoldstadt. I believe that's how you're supposed to say it. A lot of cheers for those. Another one that I heard quite a lot of support for was Top Dog Underdog. What was also cool during a lot of the commercial breaks is that they would do little bits for us in the theater. There was a whole segment at one point for one of the commercial breaks about different puppets in Broadway, whether they are currently on Broadway or in recent years they were on Broadway. A lot of different advertisements for shows that were coming out this year. So there was an advertisement with a little bit of behind the scenes and promotion for Grey House, which is the play that I recently saw when I went to New York. So if you want to go check out Grey House, you should go check it out. It's produced by Matt Pat, a fellow YouTuber. What? It's Sweet Caroline. They did put the words for Sweet Caroline on the screens for us, which I did think was funny. We were making jokes that they had some intern do it so that if the writers got mad, they could say that the person didn't know what to do. You guys remember how if you wanted to watch a lyric video on YouTube, it would be like the photo, like a one press photo from a tour of a singer, and then like the words were made in like PowerPoint, Google Slides or something. Do you guys remember that? They could have just telecast that to the screens for us. That would have been good. There were a few moments that I wanted to check on the live stream because there were some, again, very weird camera angles, like I said, for what they showed to us. And then also there were multiple times where the screens cut to black for a few seconds. And we don't know what that would be because there's nothing to hide from us because we're there. And there was nothing that happened that wouldn't justify them cutting to black. So we're not sure if that also meant that the broadcast cut out at the same time. So I've got to go back and check and see if that happened at all. My guess is no, because I'm assuming there's a different team for what's actually happening in the theater versus what was happening on the broadcast. And we were just seeing some of the angles that they were using. There's a helicopter outside my window. What is going on? So then we left and trying to get out. At one point, me and Juliana were like, we're just going to hug the wall because it was getting so hot. And we walked outside. And if I was alone, I probably would have tried harder to get into the after party. It's a little difficult when you're with a group of people. But there was a table set up outside of the after party and people were paying for something. So I'm assuming I could have bought a pass to the after party. I should have asked, but I did not. I do not know how much the after party was. There was this giant Tony outside, so naturally we all took photos with the giant Tony. Specifically, this photo I love. When I win my Tony in the future, I want this photo circulated for the how it started, how it's going. So post the Tony Awards. Obviously, there's certain things people are talking about. Something that I think really impacted this year's streaming was that you guys did not advertise that there was a compromise enough. If much at all. There was some news coverage and all of that. And I don't know how you would normally advertise things like that. But I think there should have been a bigger deal to make it clear that there was a compromise with the writer's strike for the Tonys to go on. Because the amount of people that I saw talking publicly and also reaching out to me directly that assumed that the Tonys going on was crossing the picket line was quite a few people. So I'm assuming that there's quite a few people who thought that by watching the Tony Awards, they were encouraging someone crossing the picket line. And so they did not watch the Tony Awards. I heard from 5 different people who tried to stream it on Paramount Plus and could not find the current airing year of the Tony Awards, currently as it was airing for Paramount Plus. So I think that also, I don't know if you guys, how it was set up, but a lot of people were having trouble streaming it digitally via Paramount Plus. That also, I think, added to the streaming numbers. But more than anything, I think you guys did not advertise enough that it was going to be unscripted and that you didn't advertise enough that it was in collaboration with a compromise from the Writers Guild of America. If you had made a bigger deal out of that, the numbers would have been better. Quite a lot of people were saying like, this was better than last year's. Like it just flowed much better. And like I said, we were done by 11 o'clock on the dot. They went directly to time. So even with everything, there was quite a few people they ran the timeout on, which was not good, which I understand why they do that. But I mean, I think there needs to be some discretion in that. Because for some people, who was it that was speaking? And I believe they were talking about someone who had passed away and they ran the music. He kept trying to talk and instead it was the Phantom of the Opera chandelier came down and then they started doing the in memoriam. Well, he was talking about someone who had passed away that had worked on the production or the original production. I believe this was for Revival. I just think that that's some discretion should be used. I understand you're on a time crunch, but then cut something else, trim something else a little bit. Have some buffer time, because it never looks good for social media. I know this sounds stupid, but like the easiest way to keep people happy is you don't cut off someone speaking when they're talking about something important. There's always at least one, and then it trends on Twitter because people are pissed that you cut off someone. I really enjoyed my experience. It was very fun. Definitely would have been different if I'd gone alone, obviously. I guess I technically was alone, but I just kept following around Brendan and Juliana because I felt bad that I had bullied them into going a little bit. And I told Juliana, I was like, I was so worried you were going to be mad at me. And she was like, no, I just wanted to go. I was like, okay, great. Also, it's important for me to know that Brendan was wearing a clip-on tie and that he forgot his pocket square. Oh my God, I totally forgot. Again, I have to check the broadcast. Something was going on with the sound mixing here. There was a lot of issues with the sound. I noticed it in Anne Juliet, but that was the first performance of the night, really, past the opening number. I don't know how many mic checks or sound checks they did for the performers, but there were whole musical numbers where almost everyone seemed to be at a different mic level. Like the performance for Parade, I could not hear her performance whatsoever. I only heard Ben Platt's voice. There was only some notes where I heard her and Juliet maxing out the mic the entire performance, it seemed like. There was multiple times where the music could not hear the vocals over the music. There was just a lot of issues internally that I was hearing in the theater that I don't know if it translated to the broadcast, so I have to go and check on Paramount Plus or something. I just thought that was odd. And I'm assuming, I don't think they were really allowed to have rehearsals for the Tonys because of the compromise. But a sound check seems like a technical aspect that's kind of required. I don't know what was going on. And it was hard to hear and hard to understand at certain points in the theater. And I thought maybe it's because of where I was sitting. If only it was, categorized for the orchestra. But other people in Lowe's that I spoke to, including Brendan and Juliana, were also having the same notes I had. And they were in the middle section, further back in Lowe's. So even though I was right by a speaker, sure, it was louder for me because I was right there. But they were also hearing the same things that I was hearing as far as the issues with the volumes and things like that. So something to note. I'm assuming, again, that's because of the compromise. And yeah, that's really going to be it. Did you watch the Tony Awards? Did you also not know about the compromise with the Writers Guild? Would you invite me to a different award show? Let me know. Comment down below. Reminder, I have a podcast, the Swell Shenanigans podcast. Reminder, I have merch. Maybe I can finally revamp the I'm just here to be annoying design. We'll see. Shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you could also support me on Patreon, leave this down below. Like to follow me on my social media. Live you all up here. And that's going to be it. Have a lovely day. Goodbye. This is one of the few times where people were asking me, how did you get in here? Like, who did you know to get in? That I wasn't bothered by the way they said it. There are times where people ask me that and it's like clearly like, how did you get in here? Like there's things like that. With this, it was very much like, how did you get in? Like that type of thing. Because they also got in by different means. And a lot of people, there were people who were part of nominated productions as well that ended up here. There's a lot of friends and family that ended up there. So there was kind of like a variety of people that were in the upper section, like where I was. Thank you, Andrew, Allen, Awful, BJ, Cameron, Christopher, Chris, Crispy, Crispy, Crash PC, China, Dirty One, Don, Elliot, Donnie, Evan, Eric, Eal, Hopeless Homer, Incognito, Isaiah, Joe, John M, Jordan, Joseph, Kenny, Kim, Kristen, Justin, Lamb, Lexus, Luis, Mae West, Madeline, Matt, Matthew S, Meme Lord, Michael J, Michael T, Micah, Nathaniel, Pat, Penn, Richard, Philip, Rob, Rosie, Red, Robert, Ross, Ryan, Sam, Serena, Skylar, Simon, Tasha, Timothy, Heavenly Plastic, Tyler, Tenzin, Tom, Thomas, Qwerty, Victor, Randy, Winter, Wendy, Will, Williams, Endries, Wink.